Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the Football Diary podcast. It seems like United are the only team trying to stop the Scousers from winning the Premier League this season. We drew at Anfield, which is where we're going to start this week's pod, as well as talking about that entertaining game between Spurs and Newcastle, Villa beating Leicester 2-1 and Palace 1, Chelsea 1, all of which were really entertaining games. And I think a nod towards Brentford's thrashing of Southampton for a number of reasons too. But shall we start at Anfield, guys? I'm with Myles and Dave today, so I might jump straight in with Dave and say, how are you feeling, first of all, man?
Mixed feelings, frustration, because I thought we played outstanding. And I can't actually name a player that probably had a poor game, probably De Ligt. But I thought every single player on that pitch put in such a performance. And I just think it was, what a game, first and foremost. I think
the forecast was grim, though, wasn't it? Like, we were expecting, I think a lot of neutrals were too, a very comprehensive Liverpool win, to put it mildly. How were you feeling, honestly, before the game, Dave? What was your feeling about what the result might be?
I was a little bit defeated, if I'm being honest, because I think a lot of United fans probably thought it was a foregone conclusion. And I think the atmosphere a bit before the game felt a little bit muted. I think the performance that they put in, the fans, they've taken so much energy from that. And you could see as well, I thought particularly the likes of Ugarte was, what a leader he is on the pitch. He's that performance that I think is outstanding at what he's put in there today, and just everywhere. He didn't let Liverpool's forwards get a sniff, and didn't let them any sort of time on the ball. And I think he kind of set the tone for that United midfield. And from the front, when we were looking to press in these moments, I think we were quite clever when we were pressing as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a game that could have really swung either way and could have hinged on moments, but I think it relied on maybe United digging a bit deeper, which they definitely did, and a bit of luck too. And I think all of that played part. I think in the end, a draw was probably a fair result, Myles. But as a neutral, how are you seeing this game? How did United stop Liverpool, essentially?
I think it was half down to the fact that pretty much every player on the pitch for Man United had their best game of the season so far at the same time. That's kind of what it was going to take to get a result out of this, really. And then they obviously had a clear plan to attack down that left-hand side, which a lot of teams try and do against Liverpool. And I think particularly with all the speculation surrounding Trent, he had a terrible game. And it meant that Fernandes and Dalot were able to really capitalise that. And Garnacho, when he came on, I thought he had such a good impact on the game. And it's just telling that United looks so much more assured in the middle with that midfield of Ugarte and Mainu. Like, Mainu, that was the best I've seen of him this season, definitely. His engine was there again. It looked like he'd come back to some fitness and he was getting himself around the pitch really well. And as Dave mentioned, Ugarte, that's the player you need Casemiro to be. That kind of leader who will break up play, can play the right ball forward. I think it was really encouraging. So, yeah, it was a much better performance than anyone really expected. I mean, you mentioned the forecast beforehand was a bit grim for United. Well, it was weather-wise as well. It was absolutely abysmal, wasn't it? I think a lot of people thought the game was going to get called off this morning. So for it to go ahead, no expectations on United, you kind of bring everyone to the trenches at that point, and United just played a great game in that aspect. So yeah, it was a great performance.
I've kind of got to imagine what the team talk would have been like, Dave, before the game, because I think Amorim needed a performance, especially after the Newcastle game, and we didn't get your take on that. You weren't with us last time, but it was an awful first half especially, and we were berating that midfield of Eriksen and Casemiro. So to see the midfield have some energy and desire was a huge step up, wasn't it, in performance?
Yeah, and I think that was something that was highlighted in the game today, wasn't it? That the difference in the midfield between, obviously we had Bruno, Ugarte and Mainu all missing versus Newcastle. I think if they play, I think it's a very different story. I'm not going to say the results any different, but I think there would be a marked difference in the performance levels and the energy levels, because if you play that Eriksen and Casemiro midfield against Liverpool, we've got absolutely no chance. But I just think there was an element of control there. I thought Bruno Fernandes, I think that's the best game I've seen him have in a very long time. And
agreed.
Such a controlled performance as well. I've never seen him control the tempo of a game, recycle possession so well. I can't remember him losing the ball and getting frustrated like we all do sometimes, I think, with Bruno, because he has that sort of erratic nature at times. But I thought he was absolutely superb, and that's what we need. And there were leaders on that pitch. That's what you looked at that game, and you immediately thought, Where's this come from? Where is this every single week? Which we should be seeing. But I think what's quite interesting, I think definitely before the game, if you watch the performance of Diogo Dalot in this game, if you watched every single moment, if you look how many times he went down the outside of Alexander-Arnold, he never does that. Never goes down the outside. And it actually gave us so much more of an element of unpredictability. But the amount of crosses we managed to get into the box, which actually made Liverpool panic quite a little bit, especially after we scored our first goal. They were at 6s and 7s, and we looked probably for a couple of minutes more likely to score.
Yeah. About 6 minutes we were ahead for.
He's definitely given information to Dalot, and you could see his urgency. As soon as we had the ball in between sort of midfield and that final third, he was bombing forward straight down the line and was attacking Trent every opportunity he could get. So I think we made the most of that, and that was clearly targeted, that left-hand side.
Well, Amorim made a few comments, hasn't he, since the defeat to Newcastle about lack of leaders in the team. And, there's a few comments there that were quite negative and critical, and rightly so in some ways, but they could have backfired. But maybe it was meant to galvanise, who knows. But I joked at the start, Myles, didn't I, really, about how we took points off Liverpool and we're the only team trying to stop them winning the title. What does this mean for Liverpool now? Because this would be a bit of a knock to them, won't they? Won't it? I mean, they've not had this kind of adversity. They lost Nottingham Forest, but a draw in these circumstances against United has to be seen as a little bit of a negative for the first time, really, for them.
Yeah, I think if they'd lost the game, it would have felt worse.
Yeah.
But you could tell that it felt like there was an air of complacency about this fixture, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Slot completely address that going forward. The biggest losers of this game are Nottingham Forest, because now Liverpool have really, really taken something to that game, whereas actually Forest might have felt a bit of confidence going into it, given their previous result with them. I think for Liverpool, you have to consider the teams around them. Arsenal dropped points this weekend. Chelsea dropped points again. Man City are still miles off. This isn't necessarily a heartbreaking result for them.
No.
And actually, even when they went 1-0 down, you kind of sense that it was inevitable they were going to get back in the game. I think the biggest surprise was the fact that United got the second goal and that their mentality didn't drop once they'd gone behind. Like Dave mentioned, that idea of leadership, is that not exactly what we were crying out for on the pod earlier this week, Mike? We had a long conversation about that. And Liverpool, it's funny because they have such a clear leader in Van Dijk, and then a lot of the time, the other one that you see really kind of barking orders and helping their team move forward is Robertson and Trent. And the two of them, they looked really isolated in this game. And I think they just need to address the situation around those players like quite soon. There's a lot of speculation about fullbacks that Liverpool are being linked with on both sides. And it feels like that might have unsettled them slightly for this fixture, along with the kind of, like Dave mentioned, the foregone conclusion that they were going to spank them going into this. So I don't doubt that they'll be back winning the next game, and a point to Man United can't be considered a bad result, really.
Yeah, it's me clutching for any kind of grain of hope for any title challenge from anyone else, and to stop Liverpool winning the league in this weird season. It's a weird season for Tottenham as well, isn't it, guys? Spurs 1, Newcastle 2. I mean, that was the result on paper. But if all things were equal, guys, if all things were equal, as Ange Postecoglou kept repeating in his post-match interview, what did he mean by that, Dave? Why was he so frustrated with this result?
I just think it was a typical Spurs game. I just think it was so roller coaster. I think there was no element of control from them in this game. I thought Newcastle were the better team on the whole, even though I think the Spurs did create a number of opportunities. Just lacked a little bit of quality in that final third at times. I can see his frustrations. I think they've been let down by the recruitment. We've spoken about that, haven't we? We think they've been let down by their recruitment team.
Maybe. Well, that back four was more patchwork than it's ever been. It was really threadbare, wasn't it? But I mean,
the thing that's worrying for me is when your best player is like Bergwall in the first half, in my opinion. Yeah, and he's 18 years of age. I thought it was the brightest spark by a mile. They don't have a midfielder in there who can consistently control games. Obviously Basuma didn't start this. It was Sarr obviously partnered Bergwall, wasn't it? And Newcastle, let's be honest with them, they've arguably probably got the best midfield in the league
at the minute.
At the minute. So when you go toe to toe with those, I think it's always going to be a difficult battle. But they just really were on the front foot from the off, Newcastle.
I thought Spurs were unlucky because for obviously the handball, whether that's interfered with play or not, is contentious. I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Myles? Because I mean, I think that's what Postecoglou was kind of referring to, how that was the thing that was unfair, and that's why that goal shouldn't have stood. But do you think he's got a point?
No. Maybe I'm alone in this because I've seen so much about this decision, but
Yeah.
I don't think his arm's in that unnatural a position. That's what the PGMOL said. I actually agree with them. His arm's down. It hits his hand, fine, but what do you want him to do? Chop it off? Like, it hits him from quite a close range. His hand is low. It. Yeah, like, I don't know. I thought they made a bit too much of that.
I think they'd be
the
more
one that they were more annoyed about was the Dan Burn one. Should that have been a yellow?
There'd be more controversy if that got ruled out. If it got ruled out,
yeah, I think so too. Even the Dan Burn one, it looks like it hits the t-shirt line. It's nuts the way he jumps at the ball with his arms out, and he's asking for trouble for it. I don't know why he's done that, but again, I didn't think there was anything that bad in this. And what it screamed of was a manager who knows he's lost it, just looking for anything here. And his post-match, like you quoted it a minute ago, Mike, I thought it was embarrassing. And I just think it's really telling that it's done for him there. I've been saying it for a long time that I can't see him getting out of that. They've lost, 10 games out of 20 now this season? It's just shocking from him. And you could see the way he tried to address it was to blame everyone else again. And I do have an air of sympathy for the injuries, but that squad is weak. I mean, James Maddison came on and made a huge difference for them again. He doesn't come on to the 62nd minute, and you feel like Dave mentioned that lack of control they have in the middle. He does bring that. He maybe isn't the best defensively, but when you're on the ball, he feels so much more assured than anyone else they've got, and they're not starting him consistently. I think they're a mess, Spurs. I think the quicker they move Ange on, the better for their sake.
It's a quick question for you. Sorry.
Come on.
Who do you think's in more of a mess? Man United or Tottenham?
I think you have to say Tottenham purely because Man United have done something to at least kick-start the process of addressing it, whereas Spurs don't feel like they have. United are a mess because they're run terribly, and you can say the same thing about Spurs, so it's really comparable. The difference is United have just brought in a new manager, so I don't really want to jump down his throat and say, oh yeah, he's in a worse position. I just think Tottenham, the mentality there has been so poor for so long, and it's weird. Have you seen their record for this season compared to last season?
Yeah.
This time last season, they'd scored the exact same amount of goals and conceded one less, and they were like flying at the top of the league last year, and in this season it's completely failing for them, and that to me is a perfect sign of how inconsistent Ange ball really is, because you don't know what you're going to get one game to the next, and it can vary your results so much that they have to do something about it now.
Let's talk about how ball, if that's a thing. Because Newcastle, once again, I didn't even think they played at their best. They didn't have to in this game. But even taking advantage of that deflection off the hand, Anthony Gordon's goal was brilliant, really well finished. Sandro Tonali ran the show, literally ran the show. He did more kilometres than any player on the pitch by a mile. And that's his role at the minute, isn't it? He watches the play, sees what's in front of him, is aware of the space around him. Tonali's a star, isn't he? He's wicked. That's to you, Myles.
Do you know who the top three for distance covered were in that game?
Every midfielder, probably, in Newcastle.
It was Tonali, Guimaraes and Joelinton. And that's it, isn't it? Last season, we saw them kind of struggle because of the congestion to the fixture calendar, and we talked about that a lot. Obviously, Tonali then picked up his ban. They had a lot of injuries. Now they've got a fully fit, firing squad who are relentless, and Eddie Howe's always been like that. And that's often what people accuse of being the downfall of Eddie Howe's side, that they got burnt out quickly because he plays such intense football. Yeah. But this Newcastle side looked ready for it, and they didn't ever let Tottenham settle. Even when Tottenham had chances, it was all very frantic, it felt like, because they're being pressed relentlessly by Newcastle. Whereas they're the opposite when they're on the ball. They're so calm with it. The way Tonali and Guimaraes in particular link up now and play the ball back and forth between them just looks so measured. And what it does is it just activates that space for Gordon and for even Murphy at the moment to get forward in those wide positions, and gives Isak that space in the 18-yard box as well, because they draw other midfielders out by being so relaxed on the ball. It's really impressive.
Yeah, that sync between midfield and attack is rare, I think, in the Premier League, especially among top clubs. There's not many clubs, bar Liverpool, that are performing that well in the final third. But Newcastle looked amazing, didn't they? And I think, Dave, for Newcastle fans, they must be now looking at higher up in the table and see Arsenal's currently sat 5 points above them and going, we could easily get second place, or, we could push higher, because our ceiling, I think, is still so high. And I think that's fair too, because it's the first time we've seen this Newcastle side fairly injury-free, without another competition like the Champions League, for example. And that intensity was there from kickoff, really. The players were running, and that wasn't possible last season when they all just looked so knackered, didn't they?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think the last 10, 15 minutes, they did look like they were a little bit heavy-legged. I think they felt the pace, the effort they put in, particularly in the first 60 minutes of the game. I thought they were outstanding. They brought Harvey Barnes on, didn't see a great deal of. And to be honest, if it wasn't for Spurs being Spurs in the final third, there were times they just weren't very measured with their final pass. And it was that instance where they had about 3 crosses they blasted across the box, and somehow it didn't go in and take a pass, but probably just needed a measured pass to pull back. And but I just think they probably felt like they probably should have finished the game off with the opportunities that they had, particularly I think at the start of the second half. They were really, really causing Spurs a lot of issues. But yeah, I think you're right. I think they'll definitely be one of the favourites, I think, for Europe at the minute. And just at the right time, they're putting a run together.
Let's jump right in with Myles. Let's talk about Villa 2, Leicester 1. And a performance that was pretty impressive, really. They played well, some good individual performances too, and a deserved win for your boys, mate. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it was good. I think at times it was a little lacklustre and we want to see a bit more intensity, and it came at a cost because McGinn's gone off injured. But, like you say, there are players in the squad that are standing out again that weren't necessarily on our radar not long before that. So Ross Barkley is just proving how class he is at the moment. I think it's just an excellent addition to the squad. I mean, this is a player that we knew from a young age had such a high ceiling. It felt like he got written off in his time at Chelsea, has rejuvenated his career and is coming back and playing excellent football for this Aston Villa side now. I think it was such smart business to bring in a player of his experience, and he's proving why now. I mean, the finish was superb, but actually what he offered throughout the game was composure. And it feels like really often when Villa want to see games out, Barkley's the man they turn to because he will just slow things down. It's very methodical. I think that's really impressive. And then again, we make another change and see Ian Maatsen come on at left back and look outstanding again. And I think it's such a wonderful position to be in as a club that you've got Luca Dean still in the form of his life. Since Emery got there, it's felt like he was on borrowed time and he's never failed to perform. And now you've got this young player in Maatsen who he just looks sensational. And I think the link-up play he's capable of with other forwards makes him a really good threat going forward in a more advanced role as well. I think that's probably something Villa have got to address now, how they get Maatsen in the team.
Well, linking up with Leon Bailey seems quite natural, didn't it? And them two look quite positive down the left. But for me, I was surprised to see Barkley start, I think, because, he's been fairly bit part, I guess, you could say. But he's matured no end, hasn't he? Barkley's changed his game quite a bit. And I think when we saw him at Luton, that was the first time we'd seen this renaissance of him. But it doesn't feel like a surprise now. He's a great squad player, and you must be happy with his addition to the team.
Yeah, 100%, because this midfield needs legs, because we do so much when we try and control the ball, and that means options in a congested fixture calendar. I mean, we've already talked about how Villa are playing a lot more games this year, and the intensity of the Champions League's going to add up. But Barkley has had some really key moments. He's already got 4 goals this season, which is really impressive for a player who's a central midfielder that doesn't necessarily play behind the striker anymore and isn't starting games. So I'm really pleased to see the kind of impact that he can have on this team. I think it made sense starting him in this game because you know that you probably can overrun Leicester's midfield. Their defence is going to sit a lot deeper because they haven't got the pace to kind of recover. So it gives you a lot of space in the middle third. And Barkley does very well in space, just as Tielemans does. So it makes a lot of sense to utilise that, really. But it's good. We've got a lot of players out on the pitch. Buendia came on as well. He looked really impactful. That's really exciting to see. the window's open and it looks like we're moving for Daniel Marlon at the moment, which is another wide forward. But I actually do wonder if there is space to try and get Martin and Luca Dean both down that left hand side together.
Oh wow, okay.
And see if that will bring the best out of Bailey as well, to have
Yeah.
two wingers, because it feels like really often our only wide focal point is coming from Leon Bailey, and it makes us really easy to pin in, and it makes it really easy for a fullback to take him out of a game. And when we saw Martin get on the pitch and get further up, it frees Bailey up to come inside like he does. An amazing thing for him to get a goal in this game as well. He needed that, didn't he?
I was going to say, before I move on to talk about Leicester with Dave, I think that's the thing you've been kind of bemoaning, really, is just Villa's goal difference, first of all, not taking enough chances that they're creating.
Yeah.
Seeing Bailey back on the score sheet, that's a big plus for him. He was so happy afterwards in the interview, and rightly so. But I think you've missed that, haven't you, this season? That extra outlet for goals.
We definitely have, and it looks like they're trying to act in January to address that. But if you can get that out of Bailey, fantastic. I mean, only Watkins in this current squad has more Premier League goals than Leon Bailey. Like, he's got more Premier League goals than Jack Grealish ever did for Aston Villa now. So he is someone that can be that threat for us. We've not seen the best of him this year. I really hope, knowing what a confidence player he is, this is something that kickstarts him. Or even just the interest in other wingers might be something that started him. I kind of jokingly said on Blue Sky, you saw his upturn in form last year when Diaby came in and there was competition for his place, and then he's gone and his form dropped again. Now we're looking at Marlon and already he's got a goal and he looks a bit more effective. So I hope that stays, because Watkins wasn't exactly firing in this game, which was frustrating. So he needed the goal to come from somewhere, and thankfully, Bailey was the one.
Fair enough. Dave, moving on to Leicester then. Ruud van Nistelrooy's not had a great run of late, has he? It's been a real tough string of defeats for Leicester, but I think they've showed glimpses of real positivity at times, and they're terrible defensively, but I feel like their attacking style has kind of gone to pot a little bit as well. What's happening there, do you think? What do you think Van Nistelrooy's feeling at the minute?
I think it's always going to be a difficult game, this. First and foremost, I think they're not really a team that keeps hold of possession, not since they've come back into the Premier League. Obviously, in the Championship, it's always going to be a big leap to do that in the Premier League. So, and I think they've lost a bit of threat in those forward areas with the injury to Fatawi. I think looked really promising early on in the season. And they've just lost a little bit of quality, I feel that. They did have a couple of decent opportunities. Mavididi had a wonderful chance in a great area and just put his shot, so wide of the target. But I just feel as though it's difficult for them at the moment, because they're looking to stem the flow. Even against Man City last week, it felt like it was a matter of time before Man City would get through them. And I think that's where they're struggling. They're struggling in transition and getting the ball in the right areas to threatening players, which I don't think they have at the moment, if we're being honest. All respect to Jordan Ayew.
Yeah, true.
Jamie Vardy, who's in his later years, it just feels like they need a little bit of quality in those areas to actually punish teams when they're looking to counter, because that's where they're looking to hurt. Hurt teams like Villa, who are going to, let's be honest, have majority of possession in games like this.
I think they're going to be looking over their shoulders, really, aren't they? It seems Southampton may be catching them at this rate.
It's about getting in those areas as well. I mean, they only had 4 shots in this game, which is not great at all. They will be worried for certain, but I think you'll be looking at the table at the bottom at the moment, and Everton, I think they're around 17 points, so they're not completely. They're not completely out of.
No,
it's not completely
it's a terrible
out of
run that they're on. The amount of defeats they've had in a row is worrying, really worrying. I think a couple of the teams above them are kind of creating a bit of a gap as well. Obviously, Wolves coming out of the picture, Crystal Palace kind of going a bit further ahead as well. So yeah, they will be worried. But Crystal Palace, let's go to them, shall we? Let's segue onto their performance against Chelsea, because they've been so much better of late, haven't they, Myles? And taken some really big points, and this one was huge. Chelsea in that first half looked, again, like they did in the last couple of games, like they would be out of sight and probably should have been. But Crystal Palace in the second half, it's a whole different game completely. And Chelsea, they need to take their chances, basically. But Palace will be relieved that the half-time whistle came first of all. But Glasner just worked his magic in that second half. It seemed to galvanise the players onto a different level.
Yeah, and similar to how we were saying about Eddie Howe and Newcastle, just the intensity the Crystal Palace play at pays off. And the fact that they can keep that up for 90 minutes is really encouraging. Chelsea, yeah, you would expect them to have won this game quite comfortably, particularly based on the first half. But Palace never let their heads drop and organised themselves so well. And defensively, they look really strong. A lot of Chelsea's opportunities are ones from distance or ones that are kind of first time shots because they haven't got time to get through a defender. But if you look at that Palace defence, obviously without Chalobah because he's on loan from Chelsea, Richards, Lacroix and Guéhi were outstanding again. And you've got there in Mark Guéhi someone that every Premier League club must be looking at right now and wondering if they can tempt him away from Palace because he's sensational. He's such a good centre-back. And Chelsea must feel so frustrated that they've let him go in the first place. And Lacroix has proved to be an excellent bit of recruitment as well, and Glasner's getting a lot out of them. So it's a great run from Palace, and it doesn't feel like much of a surprise. This is kind of the Palace we expected at the start of the season, because it's what we saw at the back end of last year. I'm glad that that's starting to come back together.
Well, I don't think defence is a problem for them, really. It's scoring goals. No. They just don't score many. I think there's only like 3 teams that have scored fewer than Crystal Palace, but Mateta's scored this one, assisted by Eze as well, late in the game, Dave. But I think deserved, just for that second half fight back and the spirit they showed. It's much improved from Palace, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think there would have been a lot of worried Palace fans, I think. Come a few games ago, we were talking about, and we were worried for them, weren't we? Weren't they really? They were on this barren run. They just couldn't get that win. All of a sudden, they're looking like the team that we were giving so much praise at the end of last season. Mateta's finally up and running. Eze, obviously, and Ismail Assar, I think, looks like it could be a real find for them. It's interesting to see what happens now. Obviously, they've recruited so well over the last 18 months, couple of years, and finally got this. Found the coach, and they're happy with the system, the football that they're playing. Like you say there, Myles, if a big club does come in for Mark Guéhi, it'd be interesting to see if they replace him with a former Chelsea player as well, in Fikayo Tomori.
Maybe. They did well to hold on to in the summer when Newcastle were offering him really big money, and that tells you Palace. He's their captain. Palace want to build this side around him, and I can see why. He's definitely the kind of leader that they need. I just wonder whether at some point the pull of European football comes in and whether that can be quite tempting. Chelsea could do a lot worse than going back to be honest.
Very true. Yeah.
I think there's always going to be a ceiling for that kind of player, and I think we're gone are the days where clubs are going to come in and pay 90+ million for.
They've learned from Harry Maguire.
We all laughed at Van Dijk for the fee that he went for back in the day. I just think clubs are more realistic now and becoming more price conscious. I struggle to see anybody coming offering probably more than what Newcastle were offering in the summer. I could be wrong, but like you say, there probably will come a time when there'll be players, of his ilk and probably want to look to go to make the leap up to European football. That's something that probably Palace are capable of doing if they keep on the trajectory that they're on.
Well, I thought they would be. I think we all 3 of us kind of assumed, didn't we, that Palace would be mid-table at least. So it'd be interesting to see if they can climb. But Chelsea, worryingly looking over their shoulder at Newcastle's form, obviously the form team of the league, apart from maybe Nottingham Forest. So, yeah, I think their slide's a bit worrying to a degree because they're creating chances. And I don't know, I think sometimes the way they've kind of segmented their squads, Myles, into like an A team and a B team, has kind of started to feel a little bit like it's not working at the minute because they're calling on some of these players and younger players coming in to replace players that need rotation or rest or whatever. And it's not quite as in sync as it was. And it's great when you're playing all of the same players all of the time consistently and they're getting that rest. But now that's kind of stopped and there's a little bit of disjointed nature to the team and the lineups. It sort of feels like that's affecting their play a little bit. I don't know how temporary that is, but do you agree?
Yeah, potentially. I think it's weird because they've recruited so many different attackers, and yet none of them are ones that you would associate with being particularly clinical, other than Cole Palmer, obviously, who's proved that at Chelsea. But they've signed a lot of wingers and a lot of forwards that are really good on the ball. But think about it, João Felix, has he ever really been scoring astronomical numbers? And Kunku had good spells at Leipzig where he did, but has struggled to do that in the Premier League. Jackson it is probably their best number 9 as an out-and-out number 9, but we know that he can be very temperamental. There's days where he looks like Didier Drogba. There's days where he looks more like some sort of duff Armando Broja that they've got rid of. So it's a difficult balance for Chelsea to strike with this squad, as we've always said. And you wouldn't be surprised if they look for a number 9 in January still. I mean, they're one shot on target in this game at 15.
What a goal, though. Let's talk about the goal as well.
Oh,
because
fantastic.
Jadon Sancho's fake and turn for the assist was prime Sancho. I mean, I think the stat is he's made 6 assists this season. That's as many as he's made in his whole United career, which is insane.
Get back, lads.
Yeah, well, who knows what he's going to be going back to if that's the case. But that goal was like, in a nutshell, what Chelsea can do. And I just don't get why they're not doing it more. And Jackson, again, made a real good chance for himself, created a nice bit of space and just blazed it wide. And you're thinking, where's their touch gone? It's odd, isn't it?
Did they sign the wrong Wolves player? Should they have gone for Mateus Cunha instead of Pedro Neto? Although I still think Neto is a great player, but just offers a bit more of a goal threat.
Signing a new deal now, Cunha as well. After all that talk that he was going to go to Arsenal or United, he's going to sign a new deal at Wolves.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that. But I'm also, for the amount of money that he'd go for, you've got to say.
Put a few teams off. Yeah.
Let's start with the best of the rest with Brentford 5-0 against Southampton. A result I think that wasn't a surprise to many, Myles, but I just think this represents so many good things about what Brentford are doing in the minute, especially their forwards. It was a great result, wasn't it, for them?
Yeah, they're clinical going forward. They've got such a good attacking touch to them, and that chemistry between Visser and Mbeumo shows again. Plus, Kevin Schade got in on the act as well, so that's really encouraging for them going forward. Yeah, excellent. And their finishing looks so clinical without Ivan Toney. I mean, it's annoying. I mean, I'm a Villa fan, and for the longest time, there was conversations about Villa where you'd always refer back to the days with Jack Grealish, and it feels like Brentford will kind of be tarred with that brush for a while of Ivan Toney, but Wissa's level on goals with him now in the Premier League, which is amazing.
That's crazy.
I think Mbeumo's 1 behind as well. And the fact they've got 2 players achieving that is outstanding. I hope they keep hold of both of them, because that's another one. And Mbeumo, he must have eyes at him from a lot of clubs. He's outstanding.
Yeah.
His ability on the ball and his finishing is so sharp. I mean, we recorded before the Arsenal game this week, I believe. And he took an excellent goal in that one. And then he's taken 2 here again. He just looks like the complete package. And I wonder if Liverpool do see Salah go in the summer, is he the perfect Salah replacement maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
Someone's got to be looking at him.
But yeah, impressive result. And I think Wissa could have had another, couldn't he? I think it 1 nearly could have made it 2 and blazed it over when it was clean through. So yeah, it could have been much worse for Southampton, who look absolutely terrible. And Brentford's first away win of the season, I think, as well. So remarkable stuff. Ipswich's draw, Dave. Let's talk about their 2-2 draw. That was not unlikely, really, after their last week's performance against Chelsea. But 2-2, I think I'm a bit gutted because I'm a real big fan of Kieran McKenna. I thought they could have held on and won this. But what did you see of the game? Did you see anything there that makes you feel like Ipswich are actually starting to come good, despite the result?
Yeah, I think it was another occasion, wasn't it, where they ruined those late goals against them, where they've dropped points so many times this season, like conceding late goals and just having that little bit of naivety, I think, in the final moments when they should be looking to keep the ball and not giving hasty turnovers. And they did the same again, literally just before the Fulham penalty, the second one.
3 penalties in the game as well. Crazy.
They were literally all in Fulham's final third. Just keep the ball, just keep a hold of it. And I think it's great to see, because obviously this is quite a young side as well, like the youthful exuberance and the likes of Liam Delap and Maury Hutchinson. Obviously was missing for this game, but I thought it was great to see Nathan Broadhead. I thought he was a real thorn in Fulham's side at times, and giving them that little bit of creativity I think that they miss when Hutchinson isn't playing.
And Smodics as well, with his goal. I think they've got such a good amount of threat. And I think I said on Blue Sky that they're only like a good centre-back, an experienced centre-back, and maybe a goalkeeper away from being quite a good team.
Well, they brought Ben Godfrey in today on loan to the end of the season. Nice, which is an interesting signing. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, bit of experience, isn't it, at the back?
I think, just going to say, I just think it's great to see how many games, entertaining games have been involved in this season. You just got to give them a lot of credit. I think for the neutral, they're just a great watch.
If you're going to watch your team go down, at least watch them go down fighting and in some style, I guess. But Ipswich could still make it out. They've still got a really good chance, haven't they? Brighton 1, Arsenal 1. Should we talk about that one as well, Myles, quickly? And the Saliba clash of heads as well. Is that a penalty for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think?
I'll be honest. Yeah. Do you know what the way I'd quantify it? If that's anywhere else on the pitch, it's a foul. They've come in late, and the man's got the ball first. I understand that people are going, oh, there was a touch from Saliba's head. But the difference is, it's not a traditional clash of heads where they're both going for a header. Pedro has the ball under control. Like, he's dribbling with his head, basically. And if that was his foot, then it would be classed as a foul, wouldn't it? So, to me, yeah, I thought it was a foul. When we first saw it, immediately I thought that was the most nuts decision I've ever seen. And immediately you watch the replay, you go, well, actually, yeah, he's head-butted him while he's got the ball under control. That has to be a foul, doesn't it?
I think it's just very late, isn't he? So late. I mean, obviously slow motion makes it worse, but if your head's going in on a player that late and it's hurting him, which it did, he had to kind of have himself patched up, didn't he?
I think that was left over from the Villa game.
Yeah,
can we just say contentious decisions as well? Sorry, we're going back to another game we've already spoken about, but the Spurs-Newcastle game. Did you see the Anthony Gordon got absolutely smashed on the nose?
Kulusevski.
Yeah.
That was bizarre.
And then the commentary team were just like, yeah, just come in together. I was like, he's not the ball by him, and then he's just come in. Okay, it's unintentional. He didn't mean to take, but it's a foul, isn't it? Sure.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah, I think so.
Body checked him in the box while he had the ball under control. I thought it was nuts.
But again, in slow motion, looks a lot worse. In real time, it just looked like he ran full pelt into him. I don't think it looked deliberate at all. But again, is that a coming together?
Yeah, it's a foul. I thought it was nuts. But no, yeah. I think this one was as well. I think, look, I'm tired of every single time Arsenal drop points. There's some sort of reason for it. If we're totally honest, and if Arsenal fans that are genuine football fans are honest, that was a really poor performance from them, and they'll regret games like this at the end of the season that they've not given Liverpool more of a push. They look terrible. Agreed. Particularly when they took Nanieri off. All of a sudden you just think, where is their attacking threat coming from? Odegaard came on the pitch for the last 20 minutes and didn't have a sniff, barely touched the ball. And that squad is lacking some real quality. The midfield looks unbalanced. The attacking threat without Saka is non-existent, it feels like. And a team that last year we were watching and going, they play such good football. They look so exciting to watch. I find them so boring at the moment.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, what about Bournemouth-Everton? Bournemouth 1, Everton 0. Everton... I don't know what to make of Everton now, because I mean Bournemouth, we've sung their praises, but Sean Dyche is not having a good time still, is he? And like you said, Dave, I feel like they're sliding a bit into this relegation conversation well and truly now, aren't they? And for fans, this must feel so depressing to see this cycle of just the same stuff every season. And I feel like that team and that squad is better than it has been in the last couple of seasons too. It's a lot more balanced. So why is it not happening for Everton?
I think all of us were thinking they were grinding out another 0-0 draw, didn't we? But yeah, I just think if you look at those teams at the bottom, and I think it's fairly straightforward. I just think they're probably one of the 4th or 5th worst teams in the league. I think that's the way it is. I don't think...
You think probably based on the fact they're in the bottom 5, Dave? That's a bit Michael Owen of you. I'm going to call you out.
I just don't understand why everybody's so shocked that they're performing the way they are. You say they should be playing better than they are. Well, should they? Because I just don't think they've got the quality, to be honest.
Dave called them to go down at the start of the season, to be fair, Mike. Well, me and you both said we thought they might kick on a little bit. Dave said no. I think they're dudes. I'll give him a bit of credit there.
It's a tough watch being an Everton fan, I think, at the minute, isn't it? But is it any tougher than being a West Ham fan, do you think? Seeing them getting spanked 4-1 by a resurgent Man City. FPL managers rejoicing at Haaland getting on the score sheet again. But
I think they've all got rid of him.
Wow, has anyone got Nicholas Fulkrug? Because he scored.
Now that is a team that should be doing better. That is a team that should be doing better than what they are.
Man City?
You can put
I was going to say, which one?
Both.
Fair. No, City looked good, didn't they? They looked a lot better. They're back to kind of what you'd imagine they would be. Savinho looked really, really exciting, didn't he? Did he put on every goal? He looked fantastic. That's what they need. And again, very interesting. He starts performing a little bit better when they're now linked with another forward. It looks like Marmoush might come in as well from Frankfurt. They're looking at Emerson from Atalanta as well. City are going to be busy in the next couple of weeks, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know how busy. I think that's the thing. I think if they don't spend much money, I'll start questioning how much do they know about these hearings and what's coming out of it. because you never know. Because I think that we're going to be drip fed information about that over the next.
They're going to get away with it.
I think that's the fear, isn't it? But we'll talk about that when the time comes. But that's it for this week's pod, guys. We've got League Cup semi-finals this week, haven't we? And obviously Nottingham Forest playing on Monday night. That could change the shape of the top of the league as well. So quite a bit to look forward to. Thank you for joining us. As always, please do follow us, like, subscribe everywhere you can. We're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, we're on Blue Sky. So please do give us a little bit of a nod there. And that'd be amazing. Continued support for us is always appreciated. But until next week, guys, thank you. And I'll see you then.
Happy New Year.
Nice one, cheers, man.